24 hours later, the same man speaks, or what you might grimly call the same man. From the same foxhole. This is after 24 hours in the rain without sleep, after the agonizing crisis of ducking Jap bullets for hours without end.
My teeth are chattering so bad I can hardly talk. It's awfully cold. That is, it's cold because it rained all night. We've been sitting in it. We got very little, if any, sleep. The orders were given that we all dig in foxholes close together. And then there goes tracer fire right over us now. So the boys are all pretty cold and damp through. This has really been something. These Japs have been in, tied themselves to what's left of these trees. They're only a few trees, but well, I think they shot a Jap out of every one of them. Then the concrete pillboxes that they had around here were really something in thickness. These things were built for eternity by the looks of things. But they weren't built with the idea of taking 14, 16-inch shells and 2,000-pound bombs. And that's what they got.
Thanks to the durability of such men, Admiral Nimitz was soon able to take over officially the first originally held Jap territory to yield to American attack. But there was no opportunity to celebrate the victory, for word came that Mutual's 51-year-old Raymond Clapper had paid the cost of victory too. The 16th American reporter to die while on duty, Mr. Clapper lost his life in a crash of a naval airplane while covering the Marshall story. Mr. Clapper was one of many great Americans we lost in 1944. There was also Frank Knox, Al Smith, Wendell Willkie, and Manuel Quezon, President of the Philippines, who in a sense was an American too. Psychologists might have said the home front American last spring was having too hard a time facing the brutal facts of World War II. So he went on a forgetful spree. Americans jammed nightclubs, drank very rare wine, and sang one of the wackiest jingles ever to sweep the country. From coast to coast, it was Mersey Dotes and Dozy Dotes and Little Lambsy Divey. In their search for laughter, Americans formed a touching friendship, too, with a non-existent but lovable Italian named Umbriago, invented by comedian Jimmy Durante. We were short on butter, bacon, and sugar, and cigarettes. On Chicago's North Michigan Avenue, two men were strolling, and...
Boy, I wish the football game. What a fight. It was a riot. They were knocking each other's heads off. Must have been some game, huh? Game nothing. A guy in the grandstand dropped a cigarette.
We were long on parties, dates, and vacation trips. It became almost impossible to get a hotel room. A man named Roger Ferguson walked into the lobby of a hotel in Indianapolis.
Hey, are you the room clerk?
Yes, sir. What can I do for you?
Are you kidding? I want a room. Wipe that smile off your face.
I'm sorry. I can't help it. The way you people get so burnt up.
Oh, I don't get a room, eh?
Not unless you want to sleep in the phone booth.
Why, you...
What's wrong? What's happened? Stop that man. Stop him.
Why, what did he do?
What did he do? I wouldn't give him a room, so he bit off the end of my nose.
On our 1944 time schedule, the next step was to capture Rome. To do this, Allied forces landed on the Italian coast at Anzio. Meanwhile, below Anzio, the 5th was fighting to capture that city and make a junction with the men at Anzio. Major Frank Pellegrin gave Mutual listeners an on-the-scene account of the fighting as he spoke from a point just 2,000 yards from Cassino. U.S. dive bombers were just coming in over their target.
Dive bombers now making another run on the target. 8 dive bombers in this particular run. Dropping high-explosive and incendiary shells, and they obviously hit a German ammunition petrol dump because there's a great sheet of flame rising and black clouds billowing up just onto Cassino. Actually, the dive bombers that just finished their run. I can see the bombs falling. Now hit. A flash is a big hit. You can hear the roar of the plane, I believe, as it pulls out of the dive. And the other one, the final bomb goes in and explodes along the highway.
It was the same story at Casino as it was in a dozen other places. Hard fighting, foot by foot and yard by yard. We were coming slowly closer to the next stop on the timetable. Invasion of Europe from the west. The first all-American radio station in Europe threw the switch on its 12 medium-wave transmitters to bring the truth to the oppressed people of the European continent. On a memorable day, the Voice of America returned to warm the hearts of Europeans and to report to them on the forthcoming invasion.
This is the Voice of America, one of the United Nations.
The Germans heard the roll of the Yankee Doodle drums and peered nervously across the 21 miles of water between Dover and Calais. The waters of the Channel stirred violently. The ring-a-rosy around Hitler's Festung Europa was tightening. We were on time. The Anzio beachhead and the Casino front were joined. An account of the event was broadcast from Naples by Seymour Corman.
Early this morning at 7:31, there was an historic meeting on the Strada Notoriana, which cuts through the Pontine Marshes near the sea. There, 2 American Army officers, Captain Ben Souza of Honolulu, Hawaii, and First Lieutenant Francis Buckley of Philadelphia, met. They shook hands. They pounded each other in the back. Their men came up, and there were similar gestures of joy and thanksgiving. For at last, after 4 months and 3 days, Anzio was no longer isolated. Its gallant troops had effected a junction with our main forces, driving up from the south.
The joining of the beachhead was followed inevitably by the capture of Rome itself. The bells in Rome were calling worshippers to Mother Church as U.S. jeeps tore up the road to the Eternal City, the backfiring of their exhaust pipes making a staccato accompaniment to the sweet music of U.S. grenades. As Allied troops entered the city, William Strand brought mutual listeners this report of the spectacle.
This is William Strand speaking from Rome. Yes, this lovely ancient city is really ours now. At the moment there are throngs of American doughboys walking through the streets and up and down the hills where Roman warriors have crossed so proudly in times gone by. But these boys are dead, as you say, looking. Some of them have come a long way. Across Africa, through Sicily, up from the landings at Salerno and across the weary, bloody miles from the Anzio beachhead. Today, Sicilian seems to have taken them to its heart. There are gleaming, shouting, clapping civilians everywhere. Their bright summer clothing a riot of color in the afternoon sunshine. And vast crowds are forming along the roads leading to the city proper. Sometimes our trucks and jeeps just above. They seem enthusiastic and friendly, tossing flowers and waving a flagon or American flag.
The capture of Rome was eclipsed immediately by other news. On the morning of June 6th at 12:45 a.m., mutual listeners, at least the night owls who catch the dance music on the early morning schedules, heard this.
London. The German news agency, Transocean, said today in a broadcast that Allied invasion had begun. This is an unsubstantiated enemy claim.
The unsubstantiated claim was backed up at 3:32 a.m. from Supreme Allied Headquarters. Colonel R. Ernest Dupuy, General Eisenhower's press aide, said,
Under the command of General Eisenhower, Allied naval forces, supported by strong air forces, began landing Allied armies this morning on the northern coast of France.
This was it. This was the moment the entire world had awaited for so many heartbreaking years. In a suburban home, almost anywhere in the United States.
Sorry I woke you up, darling.
No, of course not. You know, I always thought when the flash about the second front came through, I'd stand up and cheer. It's funny. I don't want to cheer at all.
Neither do
I feel so helpless just sitting here. When you think of all those kids going across the channel,